What's going on, everyone? It's your boy Convo with Marlo. Today I got a special guest here with me today. Who do I have the pleasure of being here with?
Hi, I'm Ann Stevenson. I represent Ward O'Damon on Edmonton City Council.
Sounds good, sounds good. Before I dive into any of my questions, how are you feeling? What is going on?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm getting over a cold, so I've got a stuffy nose. I apologize if I cough
No
throughout
problem.
the interview, but it's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. No, it's my pleasure being here because every time I come to City Hall, I feel like a big deal. It's a nice feeling. I don't know what it is, but it's like the energy within the area is like, man, I should have came here with a suit or something.
No, you come as you are to City Hall, and that's what makes it such a special place. But I agree, it's a beautiful building. I feel, you can get busy day to day, but just walking through like that open atrium space, it just reminds you to look up and take a breath. Yeah.
It's nice. We're about 4 months, I believe 4 months into the new year.
Yeah.
How has the new year been for you so far leading up to this point?
It's a great question. I'd say it's been a bit of a hard quarter for some reason, and it actually doesn't have to do with work. I had a great break over the Christmas holidays, came back feeling really energized. We're in a new council schedule that just is a bit more, it's less unrelentless. So it's we've got a bit more breathing room.
As a counselor, what is it specifically that you do?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, it's not an easy answer. I think I sort of think about four different elements on a stove. So I'm trying to keep all the pots bubbling and boiling, but there's sort of governance. So I would say that's reading reports that come to us from city staff, making decisions, voting in chambers, council meetings, talking to members of the public at those meetings and making decisions. I think there's also, being out in the community, really listening, talking to people, understanding what their needs are. Mm-hmm. There's also, helping people who are just facing challenges. So it could be some road construction or having trouble getting a permit or not understanding a certain city bylaw. So trying to support them, get them connected into the city services they need. And then there's also just sort of the communication side of things, talking about the work that we're doing on council, talking about the vision that I have and that I think Edmontonians share for what we want our future to be and having those conversations. So overall, lots of listening, learning, and deciding, I guess.
What I'd like to know is how loud is your voice? So what I mean by that is if you said this building has to look this type of way, or I would like this to be introduced to that community, is it as soon as you say it is written in stone, or is there a process you have to pass the news on to this group of people, that group gives it to them? How does that work?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think what's so important to remember is that I'm only ever one of 13. Mm-hmm. So anything I want to get done, I need 6 other people to agree with me. Mm-hmm. In that sense, it's always a collaborative effort when we're getting work done on council. I think I'd say 2 things. So again, I used to be a city staff member. I would come to city council. I would watch council decisions, and sometimes it'd be really frustrated with some of the decisions that were being made, like around land use. So about different parcels being rezoned and what they could be built out to be. And so I'm really enjoying getting to be in public hearing now and be the decision maker there. That's really satisfying, and I feel like I'm able to make positive change that really align with our long-term city goals. So that's really great. I think though that there are other times where I wish there was more I could do. I wish that I was able to do more to address homelessness, for example. Again, our council has taken a lot of great steps to invest in that. There are a lot of great folks in the community agencies who are doing exceptional work around that, and we look to support them and fund them. But ultimately, we depend on support from other orders of government as well. And so you're definitely always working, you can't do anything alone. Again, a councillor, you're working with your council colleagues. When you get beyond that, you also need to be working with your colleagues at the other orders of government as well.
How does the decision making go? Because obviously I know this might be one of those rare cases, but there was a video of Mr. Trudeau in the House of Parliament, and there was a lot of bickering going on. When he would say something, the crowd would they would disagree with him, but childishly, screaming at them, screaming at him. How does it go here?
Yeah.
Is it the same thing? Or y'all are all in a big house, and you kind of give out an idea, and if they like it, they say yes. If they don't, they bicker.
So I'm glad you put it that way and not me. There's very different expectations of decorum at council meetings versus the provincial legislature or federal parliament. Mm-hmm. So because what's really unique about the municipal level in Edmonton is that we don't have political parties. So all of us are there as individuals. We show up as individuals. We don't belong to parties. We just do our best as individuals to represent all Edmontonians. We make decisions for all Edmontonians and the people we represent specifically in our wards. So we don't sort of have those teams. We don't have this blue and red teams that are bickering with each other. We are not allowed to clap. We are not allowed to cheer. We're not allowed to heckle.
You can't do any. So what do you do when you strongly agree with what someone says?
I use my words. I sign up. So our power as councillors, we get to sign up to speak. Then you have 5 minutes to speak. So if a colleague of mine has an idea that I think is really great, I can sign up and I can say, I agree. I think this is a really phenomenal idea. I can ask them questions to clarify. To ask city staff, again, like, does this make sense? What about this? What about that? So the power is really in words, in asking questions, and it leads, in my opinion, to really reasoned, thoughtful debate much of the time.
Isn't it, is there some cases where it's just hard to kind of keep it to yourself? Because there's got to be multiple situations where someone just says something that just sounds crazy, and you really want to jump up, but obviously you can't. Is it hard to leave that in?
I think it just comes down to patience, and
yeah.
If there are, I don't think I've had the occasion to do this, but certainly, actually, there have been at times members of the public have spoken and they've used language that I don't think is appropriate. And as a councillor, you are able. Another thing you can do is you can call a point of order. And so that allows you to kind of interrupt someone and say, point of order, I'm not comfortable with the language that you're using. So there is that opportunity if it's something really egregious or offensive. But again, I think it's so important to separate out sort of disagreement over ideas and concepts and plans versus disagreements over people's identity and who they are. Anything on that side of the table is not appropriate to be talked about, but everything else, absolutely.
Wow. So is there anybody, so let's say there was someone that says objection, is there someone that can overrule the objection?
Yeah, so if I said point of order, the mayor could rule, now you're testing my rules, but the chair could say that I was out of order and could not allow me to raise a point of order. Then the chair could be challenged. So then someone can say, hey, I disagree with the chair, if the mayor is chairing the meeting, say, I disagree. And then you have a vote. And so a supermajority of council is required to overturn the decision of the chair.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's a lot of accountability built into there. But again, I'd stress it always has to be collaborative. It always has to be a majority of other councillors, individuals, in the way that our system is set up. Individuals alone are not kind of privileged to make their own decisions or in how a meeting is run.
Okay. Real quick, what was your upbringing like from childhood to, let's say, childhood to junior high, high school to university? Because I want to get to a point to you traveling abroad for 10 years.
Oh, sure, yeah. So I grew up in Rio Terrace in the west end of Edmonton. I lived in the same house from sort of when I was in kindergarten to grade 12.
Wow.
I have an older sister and two parents, a mom and a dad. And so what's interesting is that Rio Terrace is a really affluent neighborhood. When my parents bought a house there, they had just moved from Winnipeg. my dad was a mid-level manager at General Electric, so an electrical engineer. He was paid very well. He had a company car. They were able to pay the house off in 5 years, which is just like mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But then in the 80s, he was laid off. And so basically from the time I was, I don't know, about maybe 5 or so, 5 or 6, my dad didn't ever again sort of have full-time employment. So he was, able to he had contract teaching work at NAIT. My mom went back. She had been a stay-at-home mom when my sister and I were first born. She went back to work as a nurse in medi-centers. And, I wasn't really aware of it at the time, but money was, I was aware that money was tight, but it was very, very tight. It was very tight. And, but we had this house. We had a house that my parents had paid for. They were able to pay for, the ongoing property tax and insurance to keep the home. But we never had to worry about losing the house, and it enabled me to grow up in a really, amenity-rich, safe and well-maintained neighborhood. And I think that's really fascinating from a city building perspective, because the city equalized an income disparity for our family, right? We had access to affordable housing, and it enabled me to have a really stable and secure upbringing that filled me with a lot of ambition, I guess, and excitement for what I could accomplish. So I think it's a really interesting example of how different things we can invest in as a community have a huge impact on the life of families and kids.
Oh yeah, no, that's nice. So once you hit, I say, high school to university, when did you tell yourself, you know what, I spent enough time in Edmonton, let me spend about a decade of time elsewhere?
Yeah, it was all very accidental. I had no huge inclination to leave Edmonton. I loved Edmonton. Had a great group of friends I'd gone from kindergarten to high school with. But at the time, I was really interested in international development, and nothing at the U of A was really appealing to me. I remember going to an open house for the U of A, and just nothing appealed to me very strongly. And I happened to run into a guidance counselor who said, asked me what I was interested in. And he said, well, Trent University in Ontario has a really good international development program. And so I checked it out, and I just loved it. It was a 4-year program. The 3rd year was spent overseas. So I got to spend my 3rd year in Ghana, and I loved it. So I went there for my undergrad. I would come back to Edmonton during the summers. So actually I had my first job with the City of Edmonton, which was as a laborer during the summers, just maintaining parks, and had a lot of fun doing that. So, Edmonton was always kind of my base coming home. And then very similarly, when I was overseas in my 3rd year, I, started to see some gaps, I guess, in international development. And there was so much aid and community development work, but sometimes it was very abstract. All these different organizations, NGOs, were taking different approaches to development: women's rights, democracy, health-based. And not that they were working at cross purposes, but they didn't necessarily kind of come together. And I read a really great case study of a town in Brazil called Curitiba. And their mayor he was an architect, and he took a very city design-led approach to community development and community wellness and prosperity. And I just thought it was phenomenal. And so I learned about a master's program in city design and social sciences in the UK. So again, I was not super excited to go to the UK. I loved Peterborough, where I was for my undergrad. I loved Edmonton, and I sort of thought, London, it's this huge city. I might not be very happy there. Yeah. But I went, and I loved it. It was a great place to be. So I ended up being there for about 5 years, and then wanted to be closer to home. Had a 2-year stopover in Vancouver, and then made my way back to Edmonton.
Wow. So when you spent some time in Ghana, what was that feeling like, being the minority?
Oh yeah,
because I know it hit you like a bulldozer.
I could never forget it. Just I would walk down the street and kind of be like, "Oh Bruni," which is like white lady, constantly.
They don't hide it.
Oh no, not at all. And but it was great, right? Because I'd never had my race called out for me before. Yeah. So
Is that what they called you every time they saw you?
oh, like
Stuck to you like glue?
Children would follow me through the streets. Oh, Bruni, oh, Bruni, oh, Bruni. Which, but again, like it was a fascinating experience. So I'd say overall, again, like being white absolutely had privileges, right? Like I was treated immensely well. There's a legacy of that deferential treatment in Ghana, right? So definitely benefited from that. But there's also, I was also the target for certain crimes. So I was mugged twice, which again is not typical. That's not like it's a very safe country. It's great, but and there were other crimes that were happening in the community where I lived against white NGO folks. So it was a real sense of it's just hard when you can't hide yourself in a crowd, right? And when that can make you a target of violence or discrimination. But like I still had many privileges in that situation. The first being that Ghana wasn't my home. I was only planning to be there for a short time and then move back to Canada. So if I felt like an outsider, I mean, I was very literally an outsider who was planning to be there for some time and then leave. Yeah. I also, in terms of sort of the systems of the state, so government officials, police officers, everyone, there were not racist institutions against me, right? I knew that they were there to protect me. I felt safe from sort of an organizational government level. Yeah. And so what I reflect on is how different that experience must be when you experience racism in your home. So if you are a racialized Canadian and being made to feel like an outsider when it is your home, where you that's just such a, I can't imagine how hard that would be, how difficult that would be to have that experience, and also to have the experience that the structures of the state are also embedded with systemic racism that works against you. Oh yeah. So again, some insight in terms of what that feels like, but also recognizing I lack a really profound aspect that I will never understand, right, as a white Canadian.
It's nice to hear someone that doesn't look like you say something like that, because it's like you would never understand unless you go through it yourself. Mm-hmm. And even though you've gone through it like a short amount of time, within that short amount of time, you see like, is this how certain individuals get treated just because they don't look like a specific type of group? Totally. Which is crazy. It should never be like that. But for some reason, that's the world we live in. Totally. You see a certain group and you're like, oh, this group is known for doing this. Let me cross the street. Right. Which sucks, but again, that's just how it is.
Yeah. No, and again, it's like, I got to leave that, right? I just could leave that, and I just think about when you don't have that option to leave.
Exactly.
Right?
Oh yeah. When did you decide, or when did it kind of hit you where saying, okay, counseling, city councillor, I think this is kind of the thing for me. Was it recent? Was it years ago?
Yeah, I mean, I think I've been saying for years and years, like and this is not, I love our current mayor. He is the greatest mayor, but I always talk about being mayor of Edmonton, right? That was sort of always a running kind of joke during university, and something I've always been interested in. Clearly, doing city urban design, city planning. Like I really love cities. I love municipalities, and I love, again, the nonpartisan nature of municipal politics. I think the decisions we make at the city have a profound impact on people's daily lives, and it's so exciting to think about making those better and easier. So I've always been really called to it, interested in it. The two elections prior to the 2021 election, when I ran, I supported two friends who were running campaigns. So I got a really good sense through that process, just like what running a campaign looks like. So, kind of felt I had a grounding in that. But as the 2021 election was coming up, I heard, former councillor Scott McKean wasn't going to be running again. And I just remember I was on mat leave at the time, so I was, just focused on raising an infant and wasn't really tuned into what else was going on. It was also the pandemic, so It was a very unique time. But I sort of figured at the time, I'll run when the next cycle, right? If someone gets elected, I'll just run when they retire after that. But then sort of at the beginning of 2021, just sort of started to come back into the world and learn a little bit more about what was happening, and really started to feel that I had something to offer at this specific time. Mm-hmm. So coming out of the pandemic, we'd really had to take so many steps back, right? Like it was a huge crisis. We'd really had to sort of retrench, just like figure out the basics and the survival pieces. And I recognized that like moving forward, we could make small changes now that would like radically change our long-term trajectory, right? Like a small angle here like leads to a very different destination in the long run. So I really felt there was an opportunity to come in, bring some of my experience with city planning, with affordable housing, to really make an impact now for that long term. So decided to run, and was very, very lucky to be elected.
Oh yeah, no, and I could tell you love every step of it. I could tell. I see that you had some weekly updates on your page. Can you explain some of them?
Yeah. So I was not on social media before the election. I am still terrible at doing social media. My team manages my social media for me. Yeah. But it was really, I'm not someone that's sort of like actively always tweeting or commenting on what's happening. But there's so much that happens every week at City Hall, so many exciting decisions. And so the weekly updates is just a way for me to, it's actually a great exercise for me to kind of reflect on the last week. Mm-hmm. What were the key decisions, kind of help keep people informed about what's going on at City Hall and what I'm excited about. So yeah, just a way to share some of that information and hopefully be engaging more people. One of my something I'd really love to see change is that, again, the decisions we make at City Council affect people's daily lives on a daily basis, and yet we have such low voter turnout. So only about 30% of eligible voters come out and vote in municipal elections. So I hope that I can sort of demystify some of what goes on at City Hall, really connect people to what they're experiencing day to day and the decisions that we're making, and hopefully through that just get them more interested in taking part in the next civic election. Oh yeah.
With those type of things I feel like a lot of people, it's funny, I was just speaking to someone else about that. I feel like a lot of people, like my age group too, we feel like our votes won't ever count. And sometimes you never know, we might be that one extra vote to change everything. 100%. But it just sucks because we all have this mentality where it's like, it don't matter. I had a friend of mine that voted for this guy, but that guy got elected. So what would be the difference if I do it?
Yeah, and I just oh man, it's such a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because if people don't come out to express their values through the vote, then they aren't going to see their values reflected in who gets into government. Mm-hmm. And so it becomes this vicious cycle. And I'll confess, so I was, I could do the math, but the last provincial elections were the first time that the person I voted for was elected.
Wow.
So I've been voting since I was 18. So that's like about 20 years of voting.
Wow.
Where, I consistently voted for people who didn't get elected. But it's still so critically important. And again, if you don't think that your values are being reflected in who's leading, then you need to express your values in the easiest way, the simplest way that will not take you more than an hour on one day every 4 years is to cast a vote.
Exactly. What is an urban planner and housing advocate?
So I studied urban design and city planning, and it's really just looking at all the pieces that make our city run. So it's from sewers to roads to buildings, homes, businesses, parks, rec centers, libraries, just sort of figuring out how that all fits together to build a city. I really love like concrete, tangible things. That's what I love about city planning is it's very spatial. It's very, you see it around you and you see how it impacts. So like, I think about there's so many things in our environment, in our built environment, that influence how we behave. So if you think about, I always love looking at when snow falls over, let's say, Churchill Square.
Yeah.
Actually, Churchill Square gets cleared pretty quickly, but it's always fascinating seeing, we call them desire lines. So how do, we have sidewalks where people are supposed to be, but when people travel just sort of the direction they want to go, you end up with very different patterns. So we don't always get it right when we build sidewalks about where people want to be. And, you'll see it in the grass sometimes, right? Where there's just like that one path where everyone walks and the grass kind of gets worn away.
Yeah. Like that long brown, I know exactly what you're talking about, yeah.
Right? And that's urban design. And so urban design is just so closely connected to human behavior. It's amazing just in terms of, the width of a road, right? Is it 2 lanes, 3 lanes, 4 lanes? That has huge impacts on how fast people will drive on that street, how many people will walk, how many people will feel comfortable crossing that street. Will they just jump in their car to get this to the store, or will they walk to get there? And we see this in Edmonton. So I live in Oliver. It's very compact, lots of density, very walkable, and again, even across my ward, which there's some, lower density neighborhoods where it's mainly single detached house, so it doesn't all have to be apartments and high rises, but close to half, so about 46% of people walk, take transit, or bike to where they're going. That's their primary mode of getting around. And that is because the communities are built to support that. They're built so that it is walkable. It's easy to get to a store, easy to walk to work or to transit to get where you need to go. And I think that's really, really profound. That means that it's more sustainable, less greenhouse gases, and we didn't have to convince anyone. We didn't have to change hearts and minds. We just had to build a city that makes it easy for them to live that way.
Exactly. No, I like that. What are some of your plans for this year, for 23?
Oh, there's always so much going on. I'm really excited to start looking at some development in the quarters. So that's just sort of next door to downtown. Start to see if we can get some development going there. Housing is an ongoing priority in terms of addressing that. I really enjoy and I'm excited about the work I'm doing with Police Commission as well. So just really focusing on a really holistic look at community safety and well-being.
Oh yeah, no, that's nice. Last few things I'm gonna ask you is, I saw you and your whole team was at the Junos Award.
Oh yeah.
How was that?
That was very fun. It was great to be there. I really love. So I always love being backstage and like seeing all the mechanics of a show. So
you got that experience?
Neat. Yeah, it was
wow.
Like we were out front, but just seeing how they use different parts of the stage, or like setting up different parts of the stage when like on screen you were only seeing one part.
Exactly.
So it was, I feel very lucky to have been able to go, and it was a great night.
Did you see that part where that lady ran up on stage doing whatever she was doing? What was all that about? That was all over social media.
Yeah, it was fairly awkward. I mean, she was up there for a long time, and we were all just kind of averting our eyes, but I respect the message that she had around. I understand she was, really pushing for Indigenous rights. Reconciliation is critically important. I think that protest is a really important part of our democracy. Mm-hmm. It's just like lawful protest maybe is a bit more important too, but. Well, maybe I take that back. Maybe
it just could have been one of those things where it's like, maybe you'll definitely hear me if I propose it like this, rather than standing outside of City Hall and hoping someone hears me.
Yeah, well, you know, and I think that speaks to when people feel voiceless within a system, they're often looking for ways to express themselves outside of that system. And I think that's where we see a lot of protest movements coming from. And it's important for us to heed that, right? Like, if this is the only way that people feel that they can be heard, then there's something wrong with how we're listening. So certainly an important message to take away and think about how we can do a better job of reflecting those things back.
Oh yeah. Is there, my last question here for you, is there any message that like you would love for the young people to get? And by young people, I mean from 18, like starting age of voting to, let's say 29, 30.
Yeah, well, I mean, again, like vote, please vote. It really matters. Like, again, it is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If all of the youth from 18 to 29 decide that their vote counted and all of their counterparts decided, that would be a massive voting block. Like, you really could choose who the next councillors are, who the next mayors are. And that's profoundly important. And it takes collective action. You can't, in some ways it's true, a vote all alone by yourself, it still is important, but it's that collective action of all of us we each take an individual act to achieve a really critical communal outcome. I would encourage people too, if they have interest in running, being part of city council or being mayor, I found working on other people's campaigns really, really helpful. I was always terrified of door knocking. I just thought that would be the worst thing in the world.
Not a big fan of that?
Oh, I was just so nervous about it. And I just thought maybe I can't campaign because like I don't want to go door to door. That seems awful. But I volunteered and I was told, oh, you can just go and take notes. You don't have to talk at all. And so I was able to kind of go and just watch and see how it was. And I, very quickly discovered that I love door knocking.
Oh, wow.
So again, if there are things that people are afraid about or think might be really hard, like I just encourage them to try it out and
Exactly.
see.
Have you, as city council, I'm assuming you're always public speaking. You're always speaking to like a large sum amount of people. Do you still get nervous doing stuff like that?
I think it's like any skill. If you're doing it often enough, you just kind of get used to it. So that feels okay for me now. I like doing it. I think it's just remembering that no one ever judges you as harshly as you judge yourself. So being kind to yourself, we all do so much better than I think we let ourselves believe we do.
The reason why I'm asking that is because I had a friend of mine who's hosting an event for Canada Day at the Foundry Room.
Oh yeah.
And he wants me to be the host.
Nice.
Like it's kind of like a singing thing they're doing where one guy sings and then once he finishes I get the mic introducing the next guy. And it's like, oh my God, every time I think about it, my heart skips a beat. Yeah. My hands get sweaty. I start sweating. It's nerve-wracking, but a lot of people I bring it up to, they say, oh, you're gonna rock it. You have nothing to worry about. Like, that's easy for you to say because you're not doing it. So most people that I speak to that I know are usually in front of a crowd, I ask them like, what do you do to kind of get yourself through it? Or is it just second nature to you at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I think again, practice, just like as often as you can do it, because it's just it's like a muscle, right? You just have to keep using it. I know I get rusty, like if I haven't given a media interview for a few weeks, like, oh yeah, it's just like it's a bit, just need to get back in the groove. But I think more than anything, it's like, people will never remember what you say, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. So you are warm and you are kind. And if you express that and allow that to come through, that's what people will remember. They'll remember that. They're not going to remember if you stumbled over your words or repeated yourself.
See, that's the one thing I'm never, because I'm not gonna lie, I don't really get nervous. Me and getting nervous don't get along. But it's like, if I ever bring to your attention that I'm nervous about something, it's serious. It's serious. And then me talking in front of a crowd of maybe like 60, 70, maybe even triple digits of people, like, whew, man, phones are gonna be out. Eyes are gonna be on me everywhere I go. I see the eyes following me like owls. And it's just, I'm just overthinking it. I might just be overthinking it, but it's like, it's in my dreams now. Every time I fall asleep, oh man, I overthink things a lot.
Well, and that's fair. I think we do that sometimes. There's a great book called Self-Compassion, and it's all about, we have this voice in our head that can sometimes be critical or negative, and the idea of self-compassion is tell yourself what you would tell a friend, right? So sometimes I mess up, and sorry, I will also note I've probably stumbled a million times during this conversation. That's probably not what you remember, right? That's not what you're focused on. I mean, maybe you've noticed, but yeah. Tell yourself what you would tell a good friend who's feeling nervous about it, right?
Yeah.
Like, what would you tell a friend? You tell them, like, hey, no, you're
good. You got nothing to worry about. They won't even remember.
They won't remember.
Yeah.
They'll remember how you make them feel, and yeah, that's cool. I mean, I think it's great to get those experiences, and it becomes easier and easier as you do it more and more.
Well, that's everything I got to ask you. Is there anything you want to ask me before I wrap this all up?
Well, yeah. Well, tell me. Like, you were asking me what I wanted, folks from 18 to 29 to take away. Like, what message do you share? What do you think is important? Like,
to a certain group of people, or for me, it's just it's probably cliche. It's something you hear all the time, but whatever dream it is that you have, just do it. Don't ask people. Hey, do you think I should skateboard, or do you think, because obviously you're gonna run into a decent amount of people that are gonna say yes, but when that one person says no, or that one person's like, that's what you wanna do, that's the heaviest weight. And it's just one of those things, whatever it is you wanna do, just do it.
Absolutely.
And make sure you put 110 into it, because if you don't, what's the point of doing it? You never know what the true outcome could have been if you didn't put your all into it.
Absolutely.
So my message is just like Nike. Just do it. Just do it.
That's such an important message. And something that I should share too is that, I think it's easy to look at people who are doing things and to be like, oh man, they've got it all figured out. They
knowing what they went through.
Right, or what they are currently, I don't know what I'm doing a lot of the time. I am still figuring out a ton of it. And so if you feel doubt, if you feel uncertainty, if you don't know if what you're doing is right, that doesn't mean you're not doing the right thing. It doesn't mean that you are failing at that thing. It is what every single person doing anything is feeling.
Exactly. Some people, exactly what you said, some people will look at a Beyonce and be like, she's had it figured out since day one, not knowing that she went through this and that and had to, just crazy amount of things you got to go through to be at the top.
Oh yeah, and I'm sure every day thinks oh, should I have written that tweet? Or everyone has those moments of doubt or uncertainty, and that's okay.
Exactly.
That's how great things happen, and making mistakes is a huge part of it for sure.
Okay. Well, for me overall, just do it.
Nice.
Don't ask friends. I mean, ask friends, but make sure you're ready for the no. You're ready for that one person. Are you sure you want to do that? That one person that might put negative thoughts in your mind. Because I understand wanting to get hearing another person, you don't want to just do something without getting advice, because you never know if
well, yeah, and I think it's always important too to think about what's that person going through, what are they feeling.
Exactly. And you never know who could help you out too.
Yeah. So
it's not always best to keep it to yourself.
I 100% agree with that. Yeah. Again, you need other people to do things. None of what I do is by myself. It is with friends and family and supporters and volunteers and colleagues.
You got a good support group behind
you. Absolutely. My amazing team. None of it is me alone.
Oh yeah, no, that's good. For people that want to reach you or contact you, where can they get a hold of you?
Oh yeah, so all my social media is Edmonton Ann, so Edmonton_Ann. Delighted to have you reach out there, but if you want to kind of get into a conversation or have specific questions, my email is ann.stevenson@edmonton.ca. Reach out anytime. I've got a newsletter on my website, annstevenson.ca, you can sign up for, and happy to connect anytime.
Sounds good. It was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
It's your boy Convo and Marlo.
And Ann Stevenson.
And I'm out.